Hey guys, Bad Brad right here, driving fast and taking chances. And our guest today is Kip Childress. This episode brought to you by Jeff Hill Trailer Sales in Modoc, Indiana. JeffHillTrailerSales.com has got everything you need. Cargo, utility, stacker, full-blown race trailer, whatever you need, Jeff and his crew will get you taken care of. JeffHillTrailerSales.com. Check them out today. If you're an asphalt guy and you live anywhere in the Southeast, I'd say probably nationwide now, you know this face and you know who this guy is. Kip, welcome to our show, buddy, and thanks for taking the time to come.
I don't know if anyone knows my face, but
they know the name for sure.
Maybe, right?
Absolutely, and some of the things that you've done. So Kip is a local guy here, Davidson County. We sort of grew up together, but kind of a little differences there. Had a lot of the same friends.
That's right.
Knew a lot of the same folks, so kind of have run in a few circles. We're really close in age.
I think I'm older than you, though.
Gently. 52?
Yeah. 55.
There you go. Just a couple.
Turned 55.
Not far. Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, for those folks who don't know who Kip is, tell me who Kip Childress is.
So, wow. I guess we'll go back and start when I was a kid, right? My dad was a NASCAR official when I was growing up.
Who has disqualified me a few times, so carry on.
That's all right. That'll happen from time to time. So I was able to follow Dad around and what I consider to be the best time in racing, in the 80s in the Busch Series, which was then the late model sportsman series that evolved into the Busch Series, nationwide Xfinity, and will now be the O'Reilly Series. So I was able to follow him around when, Sam Ard and Jack Ingram and Butch Lindley and those guys were duking it out week after week.
Guys are still building their cars.
Oh, man.
These guys
phenomenal.
they figured out how to make a living doing it.
Yeah.
We were able to actually sustain. Sponsors were important, but we were still... You could make a living racing back then. I hear Dad tell the stories too. Dad worked for Tom Parnell, and I hear Dad tell the stories about that. And you're right. I think that was the golden era of that age for sure.
Yeah, and they were racing more than one night a week too. So they were able to do that, and that was right on the cusp of what became the traveling series. So, 82 is when that got going really hard and heavy, and I was 11 years old, and so was able to be a part of that deal when I was a kid, and just fell in love with it. Throughout school, elementary school, down the road here at Midway, and then at North Davison at the junior high, which is now the middle school and the high school. Anytime someone asked me what I was going to do growing up, it was always going to be I was going to go to work for NASCAR.
Something in racing.
Yeah. So my dad taught me a long time ago, though, that the one for sure thing that you could bank on is that the person that comes to the track and leaves with more money than he came with every single time was always going to be an official.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, unless you spent a whole lot of time at the concession stand, and then that was your own fault. But officials, generally never made a lot of money, but they didn't lose any money either. So, but it was, growing up around him doing that. I got to grow up around some great officials. David Hoots, who called races in the Cup Series for so long, and the Alton brothers, Wayne and Buster, and I mean, the list would go on and on and on. So growing up in that's what I wanted to do. So
So you had some pretty solid role models. Number one, your dad.
Sure. Yeah.
And your dad, and I'd say that, he disqualified me a few times as a race director at Caraway. Your dad had a rule book, and it was either by the book or it was wrong. And there was really no differentiation. And what I liked about your dad, and for you guys to remember, Lance, he kind of ruled with an iron fist. And a lot of people may have mistaken your dad for being mean or disrespectful, but he wasn't. He was direct. And in the job he was in, he had to be that guy.
Yeah, and so, I like to think that I have some of those qualities. I'm not as direct as Dad was. My temperament is a little softer than what his was, and I still like to think, though, that we have the same ideals. But in growing up around that, and you're right, if you had to have thick skin around Dad. I told the folks who took my place, Dad and I worked at Caraway forever together, him up in the tower and me driving the pace car, and Harry Cachet that took over my job in the pace car, I told him, I'm like, look, there's going to come a time where you're not going to like him at all.
There's definitely nights that I didn't like your dad.
Yeah. So being an official and you're on the other side of that radio and he's wanting things done a particular way, the one thing I always really admired about Dad, and I still do this to this day, is, we may have a disagreement. We may have a misunderstanding between one another. But once we move past this, it's done.
Sure.
You know, we can all move on. We can all, you know, because we're going to see each other in a week or two.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, the best way to handle that is to you know, to get everything right out in the open, and then let's just move on from it and get better from there. So, you know, I was able to work with Dad at Caraway at the short tracks. In 94, 95, had a chance to go and work some late model shows at Wilkesboro and Martinsville, and which kind of led into working when they were in conjunction with Cup.
Sure.
I was able to work, you know, the Cup Series, you know, in my early 20s. And so.
And what role did you have there? Because my earliest memory, and I didn't know that, Kip, but my earliest memory of you was a Truck Series official.
Yeah, so that came along. This was before the Truck Series even was a thing.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I had helped a little bit with the Dash Series, but the biggest thing I always wanted to do was work in the Cup Series.
Sure.
So we'd go work those late model shows and stick around on Sunday, which really meant we were, you know, we would help watch the cars when they were in impound, or we would help, you know, go to the tire impound area, you know. But then at that point in time, we were given assignments to work on pit road. And here I was, you know, 23, 24 years old, out there working in, you know, amongst these legends that were racing. And
you had to, at that point, had to feel like there was some level of accomplishment. Like, man, I made it. I'm a Cup Series official.
well, you felt like it. And
Yeah.
the thing that was really kind of strange, though, is that I was without a doubt the youngest guy there in my early years. And those guys that were officials then, man, they were twice my age.
Sure.
Or more.
But you got to think, when you and I were kids, if you weren't 40-ish year old, you hadn't earned the right to A, be a driver at that level,
Yeah.
or B, be an official at that level. So
for sure.
it to have a young guy in there, man, that was, number one, a privilege. Number two, that had to make you feel like there was something special about it, or somebody saw something in you that maybe you didn't yet see or hope that they would.
Well, you know, and a lot of that too. So, and I'll back up a little bit. You know, Dad left NASCAR back in the early '90s. So to be able to go and be a part of that, you know, and when Dad left, I don't know the whole story about why he left. You know, I know it wasn't pretty. But I was worried that maybe that might have an effect on me ever being an official.
Fair enough.
I will tell you, when Dad came home from Daytona and told us all that, you know, he was no longer working for NASCAR and he left the sport, and it was very abrupt.
Wow.
And I told him that, man, he crushed me, because that's
That was
what I
your
wanted to
thing.
do.
That's what you want to do, right?
And so, but to be able to go and have the chance to work at those events, you know, like I said, in my early 20s, it was like a dream come true, and had a few run-ins with some pretty stern crew chiefs along the way in those early days. And then comes the Truck Series, you know, and that first year of the Truck Series in '95, I was still working Caraway. I was working at Tri-County as well.
Gracious.
And then we would work events at Wilkesboro, you know, Dad and I would, but you know, got into a discussion with Wayne Alton one day, and said, man, the same road down, you know, going down 64 to Caraway 35 times a year was wearing on me. I said, I really wanted to get out and travel.
But probably for you and I, it's probably our closest other track other than Bowman Gray.
Right.
It really is probably our closest track.
It absolutely was. Yeah. And so, and you know, and thankful for, you know, the Hacketts that gave me the chance to even come and work there. But to be able to, you know, have that discussion with Wayne Alton in '95, I was able to work 2 or 3 truck races at the end of that inaugural season, and then jumped in both feet in '96, which was really kind of another story that, you know, you and I, we've been in this world forever. Sure. I married my wife in March of '96.
Okay.
And then 2 weeks later, went to my first truck race. You know, as a
Jenny's got to have
official.
pretty thick skin, doesn't she?
She knew what she was getting into.
She's lived a lifestyle. Same. I've been on the road my whole life. You've been on your road the whole life. Actually, our daughters were dear friends growing up, and they kind of both experienced not having Dad there.
Yeah, my youngest daughter really and truly has never known me to do anything different.
Sure.
I mean, my oldest daughter, she lived the era a few times through there where I had, you know, a few other different odd jobs.
And you did. And I just want to touch on that, because you and I actually had some other crossover there. So you leave the Truck Series about what year?
'99 was the last.
So '99, you leave the Truck Series. Was the first place you went, you sold trailers, or did you go to the radio business?
Yes.
You went to work for the Thorntons.
Yeah. it literally happened to where I went and actually worked the last race in Japan in '99, which was a points paying race for the West Series. So we went out there, we worked that race. We came home through Hawaii, and that's where they had their awards banquet.
Wow.
And that's where I pulled Wayne off to the side and I said, "Hey, bud," I said, "I just want to let you know I'm not coming back next year." And he asked me, he said, "You're quitting? I can't believe you're quitting." And I had to explain to him, and he knew, but I was an independent contractor
Life
at that
and
time.
family, man. Yes.
Yeah, I said, this is just, I was working 40 weekends a year.
Gracious.
If the trucks weren't running, I was working at the time, a Busch Series or a Cup Series race. So we'll back up one more time. From 95 to 99, I started out in the truck series as a run-of-the-mill inspector. I would go under the trucks, I would check the chassis, and all the measurements, things that were not supposed to be offset, exotic metals, making sure that they weren't in there. So a run-of-the-mill inspector. And so in year one, I did that. In year two, I got moved over to the pace truck and started driving the pace truck for a couple years.
That's kind of followed you along, hasn't it?
Yeah. And then years 3 and 4 is when I got moved up to race control, where I was actually running all the fire and safety equipment. So I would go up and I would manage practice and qualifying from the tower, and then during the race I would slide over. Wayne Alton would come in and call the race, and I would do the track service side of it. So was able to do that until I left in '99. But when I wasn't working a truck race, they would have me go work Cup and Busch Series.
Sure.
So it was a busy time. But yeah, so stepped away from there. Had already, had been talking with the Thornton family about going to work for them at Racing Radios, and
John was still alive then. Great guy. Chris, you dealt with Chris,
John, and Chuck, and all of them.
Just
all
the whole thing. Even the people that weren't family were family there. It was great. Charles,
it was.
Man, it was a good group of guys.
Yeah. So we, got in there. Terry Hodges was working with us then. That's before he left to go work for Toyota, and we had Major Pat. He's
Pat Frosser. God rest his soul, man. What a great guy.
So got to work with Major Pat. The very first helmet that I ever wired up. Right. I mean, we're sitting here, we're looking at this. So I go in there and literally finished the last race in Japan in November, and I started at Racing Radios like the next week, because next season was starting. For helmets,
absolutely,
and going through and doing all the maintenance on radios and whatnot. So the very first helmet that Major Pat put in front of me was a black open face helmet, and he said, "You're going to drill a 1/4-inch hole right here." And I looked at that helmet, and I'm like, "Man, I know whose helmet this belongs to. I am not drilling into Dale Senior's helmet."
Yeah.
My first one, he said, "Man, might as well just jump right in there." So
somebody's got to do it.
So I did. That's when helmets, they'd show up. You get a case of them. 6 or a dozen.
Wire 'em all. Yeah.
And it's back when you did wire a helmet, you literally wired the helmet.
Sure.
I know things today are a lot different. Things are.
It's all modular now.
Right.
Back in the days, race radios, we pinned together kits, man.
You did.
Which is still the way it should be done, but
for a cleaner sound, for sure. And you can repair it. And so at any rate, that's neither here nor there. But truly enjoyed working with that group. Got lured away from Racing Radios to go work for Racing Electronics,
right?
And had the chance to work with them, and so working for the two companies was really eye opening.
So I'm asking a tough question now that we're here.
Yep.
Who'd you prefer?
From the family aspect of it, the Thornton family, Racing Radios,
right,
for sure. From the avenue of marketing and really working to get your name out there, Bruce Silver was great at that.
Well, let me say, I don't disagree with that. I always carried the blue flag. Bruce and I, just for some reason, never could see eye to eye. So that's okay.
And Bruce and I had a falling out. I was there for a couple of years, and I was more of a service guy. I loved fixing stuff.
Sure.
I loved it when a short track guy walked into your trailer with a milk crate full of radios.
Problems. Right,
yes.
Yeah.
And you were able to go through it and sort it out and fix what you could fix and not fix what you couldn't, and be able to tell them this is where you stand with your stuff,
sure,
right? And I love the fact that maybe a year or two down the road, because you've treated them fairly and you didn't try to oversell them, they would come back to you and say, "You know what? I've signed this sponsor for.
I need all new stuff, man."
Yep.
Yeah.
And so they would remember that, and that's a racer's mentality too.
So your opinion in that day, in that time, not relevant to now, who built better stuff?
So radio's a radio, right?
And we were all buying them from Motorola, so it didn't
Correct.
matter. Yeah.
So your radios were what they were, but with the parts and pieces that were made in Forest Park, Georgia, by hand.
Donna Brown,
Unbelievable,
man,
and her son,
yeah,
and that group down there, and then all their headsets at the time were coming from David Clark.
Yeah.
So all of that gear was just top notch, right? Now, racing electronics, and I've been out of it long enough that I don't know how either company does this now, but racing electronics, a lot of their gear came from overseas.
Sure.
And they were able to, buy it for pennies on the dollar for what you were getting it from a headset from David Clark.
Right.
So they were able to really mass produce and get things out into the marketplace.
And I think they were the first ones to really honestly drive the prices to where Saturday night short track guys could finally afford radios.
Yeah, and with that though, they still so Major Pat and I both at one point in time were at Racing Electronics, and what we were able to do is offer basically two lines then. Parts and pieces that were assembled and manufactured right there in Concord,
sure,
or up in Jersey, and those went to your top-notch pro teams, the Cup teams, and then you had what they could really sell for a more affordable price,
right,
to the local racers. The one thing that I did really like about that, what Bruce was able to do too, is because he was able to buy in bulk and have so much inventory, is that a lot of times if you were a short track guy and you came in with your hair on fire in the back of the trailer and you said, hey, my headset is not working now,
he could hand you one.
Correct.
Right.
It'd be 1 for 1, and not even the cost in labor to fix one of those was way more
irrelevant. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So they both really had their strengths and weaknesses, but to your point, and I know I rode the fence here on you, but to your point there, man, the Thornton family really treated me well. They treated not only me, but my family, Jenny, and as the girls were born. So they were top notch there. And I will tell you this. So Bruce and I, we did have a falling out when I did leave there. But we've made amends too. Sure. So, thanks to social media, and he and I chat every now and again, and he's not in the racing electronics world right now.
He retired.
He's out in Vegas.
And innovator, man. He's a great guy, came up with great ideas. He's really the guy who brought commercial scanner rental to big league racing. Yeah. So whether you loved him or whether you disliked him, and again, I think my part of it is, and I was the third wheel in that, because you guys were out there and I was RH2, and I was servicing that grassroots level deal. That was an alternative for everybody. I think their disagreement, or the reason Bruce and I didn't get along, was I was a third competitor, and he was already dealing with the Thorntons, and he didn't necessarily like that. And I don't think that I obviously didn't have the pockets that Bruce had, but I was pretty aggressive, man. I was banging on doors and doing stuff, so I don't think he always appreciated that.
We've always told everyone that's dealt with you that you could sell ice to an Eskimo. So
they like cold drinks too, Kip. They like cold drinks. And I made a comment before the show started to Eric. I said, Kip will be fun to put on the hot seat. He's the most diplomatic answering guy I've ever met. And you just did a great job with it right there. So that's good. So that's a skill that you've definitely had too. This episode brought to you by Jeff Hill Trailer Sales in Modoc, Indiana. JeffHillTrailerSales.com has got everything you need. Cargo, utility, stacker, full-blown race trailer, whatever you need, Jeff and his crew will get you taken care of. JeffHillTrailerSales.com. Check them out today. This episode brought to you by the 2026 Chili Bowl Nationals. You'll want to find out more, chilibowl.com. There are still tickets available for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you can buy them online. First time ever, jump on there and get your Chili Bowl tickets. Great seats still remain for the 2026 Chili Bowl Nationals, Tulsa, Oklahoma, 40th anniversary. Don't miss it, chilibowl.com.
The one thing, too, that I think that you talk about my dad and how direct and how stern he was. There were a lot of people that either really liked him or just really didn't. And, fortunately, because of having a little bit of diplomacy there, I've been able to really stay on the good side of most everyone.
Sure.
And so that goes a long way, especially, when you're making those phone calls and, today in the role that I'm in, and you're trying to find out why maybe someone's not coming to the track, and maybe you can, do a little bit to help them out here or there, or maybe, just to understand why and make sure that it's not a reason that we've made sure they're not coming. But at any rate, I think being diplomatic goes a long, long way in making sure that you're keeping those entry lists full, and that's something that we could touch on.
Sure,
but
sure.
So yeah, worked in the two-way radio world.
So you did your
for a little
NASCAR
while
official.
there.
You went to the radio world. Then you went to the trailer world.
Yeah. So when Bruce and I had our falling out, I tried to go to work in the real world. You and I have talked about this. I've had a passion for the radio world, not the two-way side, but the actual broadcast side.
And you've been an announcer. You've been an announcer here at North Davidson, everywhere. I mean, it's like, man, that's Kip announcing. That's crazy.
I announced at North Davidson, for 20 plus years. When we opened up Oak Grove, I basically, I still do.
Oh, right.
So I had a football game this past Friday, coincidentally against North Davidson, which is always a challenge.
Because your heart's there, but absolutely.
Well, heart's in both places now, But at any rate, I love doing that. So I tried to get into the radio world, and man, that's just such a cutthroat business. And to get on the air, you either have to truly know someone or know something about someone, or someone's got to die.
Right. And you're not wrong. And I just finished 2 years ago. Ryan Guel, who's actually one of our producers here on the show, was actually one of my instructors at Connecticut School of Broadcasting. While I didn't necessarily want to be a broadcaster, there was enough of that curriculum that was applicable to what we do.
Right.
Here we are, podcasting. But I went and did that school, and I found out in that deal, until you make it, it's a starvation mode. Because it's not that deal where you actually go sit there behind a microphone for your 4-hour shift or 6-hour shift. All that's done one day of the week. Everything is recorded. It's all preset, the whole deal, and you're gone. And a lot of that stuff is done remote. So one of the last really live shows, John Boy and Billy, since 1980, I just saw their announcement. I'm sure you did too. This is their last year. So we all grew up listening to that, and I guess we all of us behind the mic kind of idolize those guys to some extent.
Them and I listened to them some, and especially when they were on Rock 92 for a little while, but I'd always been a Rock 92 guy, especially in the mornings, right?
Sure.
So I remember Brad Krantz.
Brad Krantz, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I remember those guys, and even today, Bagley and Pete won't like this, but I listen to the two guys named Chris Show on Rock 92 as I'm driving in, and I'll catch some highlights from the morning drive on the NASCAR channel when I can. But I still like the local aspect of what they do, and they're local and alive every day, and so being a part of that smaller broadcast company helps them do that.
So the fun thing too about the announcing piece, and obviously I was an announcer at Bowman Gray for a few years, and I've announced other races. I'm actually going to Sandusky, Ohio. I'm emceeing a quarter midget banquet. Volunteer. And it's like we almost have more fun doing it when we know we're not getting paid than if there's a level of expectation.
So I tell you, so even at the high school level now, they do pay a little bit. So what I do, and I've done this over the last 20, 30 years now, is I collected, you've got all of your audio and video equipment here. I've collected a bunch of audio equipment along the way. So for every dollar that I make doing the PA stuff, whether it's at Oak Grove or I'm a PA at the community college down the road, and I announced the Christmas tournament at Ledford High School. So every dollar I make doing any of that goes right back into a big Pelican case.
Keep on keeping right.
So I've got, redundant, equipment, microphones, cables. The only thing that I don't have that is redundant, but I still have backups for that because I handle the music at all those venues too, is I don't have a backup computer. But between an iPad and my phone,
you got it covered, man. Absolutely.
So, but to have all of that, and so I can wheel into any venue,
set up and make it happen. That's awesome. Yeah,
and I just like using my gear too.
Yeah. You DJ'd for a while too when you were younger.
I tried doing that, man. That's another thing. You've really got to work at it to be able to make anything
Feast
out
or
of
famine.
it.
It's there.
So did you know I worked at FMX for a number of years?
I did remember that. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
So the part-time job when I was a kid, man. This was back when I was working at Caraway and Tri-County. I would work Friday at Tri-County, go to Caraway on Saturday. I'd go Sunday to FMX, and because I was the board op during the NASCAR races.
Wow.
I would pray like hell for a rain out.
So you didn't have to do that. You get a nap.
I wanted some airtime.
Yeah, absolutely. That was cool. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'd loved, any chance I had an opportunity to get on the microphone, but I'd work 12 to 6 on Sundays, and it would be the NASCAR race, and right out of that into Hoyt's Bluegrass.
Wow.
On a reel-to-reel.
Nice. Old school reel technology right there. We learned a little bit about some of that in school, so yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was that, and that was a fun time. You know, Billy Buck, Bill Blevins, he was there, and I remember Ed with 2Ds Robinson, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that station
That was a great station back in the day.
It was a
man.
NASCAR station
Yeah,
too.
hardcore.
One of the first chances I ever had to get behind a microphone was I showed up at Charlotte one time. I was still working the local track scene, but I showed up at Charlotte, and that's back when Benny Parsons and Nelson Crozier was doing the qualifying show from the FMX bus or minivan or whatever it was they were using. They set the Marty up. They shot the signal back to the station, and I got to be a part of that. And
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, but you know, did that until tried to get back into the radio world, and man, just didn't have any luck with it. And one of the things that I did enjoy was when I was working for the radio companies is designing trailers. You know, we had that little short track trailer made for racing
really
radios.
cool stuff, yeah.
So I love doing that, and so I got with the Junker family over
Junker's great in Moxville. I mean, to me, they're still the epitome. They were the originators of big trailer dealership, big family life. And, you know, my grandfather and Bill were dear friends. In fact, when my grandfather passed, Bill was one of the pallbearers. So
is that right?
I grew up with the Junkers, great family.
They are.
Top shelf. You know what? The Junkers remind me a lot of the Thorntons, just the way that they treat people, honestly.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, they were
I can see why you would
very,
end up there.
very similar. So, and was there for a number of years, and then you know there was a shot to the economy that it put them in a situation where there were several of us that had to be let go. So when I was there in really in kind of the heyday, we had like 12 sales guys, and gals. I mean, we were strong. And
you got my money too.
Yeah, for sure. I sure did.
Kennedy
That's
came
right.
over and spilt. We were looking at a brand new toter home, and Kip opened it up, and Kennedy walked in and abruptly spilled her fluid in there. I said, "I think we'll take this one, Kip." So it worked out pretty good. Yeah.
But I loved working there, and still had a chance to be, you know, part of the racing scene. You know, we would take trailers to different venues, different events. You know, I was taking a toter home down to Myrtle Beach for a Pro Cup race.
Yeah,
I love doing that. But like I said, you know, they were in this position where they had to make some cuts, and they cut their sales staff about in half, and the way that they handled that was just so classy. It's hard to, you know, to not be a part of something and still be able to say it was classy how they did it. You know, that's hard to do.
That really is. They're good folks. They got good core, good values. They're good people. I still do business with them today.
Yeah, I do too. And so the one thing that they did is they, you know, if you had seniority there, that's how they based who stayed.
Yeah.
And those people, they're still there today.
Sure.
And this was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So I left there and then jumped back right into the NASCAR fold.
So went back to
In 08.
and you went back into the Cup Series. I remember you kind of.
So when I went back in 08, it was to be the director of the K&N series.
Correct. You did. So you did K&N West, though. Is that correct?
East to start with. So I was East end of 08, 09, 10, and 11. Went to the West Series because we had some shifts in personnel. So ended up going to the West Series 12 and 13, and then got the ask to move to the Xfinity Series as the assistant director. I want to say that was the end of 13. I was there up until the end of 18, and then to the Cup Series in 19 until I left in mid 23.
So what was you obviously had a lot of positions when you left the Cup Series? What was your role there?
Assistant director, which what that basically boiled down to is I handle logistics.
Sure.
If it occupied any space in the garage area, it was my responsibility to make sure that it was where it needed to be.
Now you did something else for NASCAR too. What else did you do?
Yeah, so I did drive the pace
car. Yeah, right on.
I would tell people all the time, man, you know, to be a part of the beginning of the weekend when you're planning on how to make the garage flow and how to make everything work and everything fit, and people just they truly don't have any idea how much stuff you really cram into that small space.
Oh, it's amazing.
And some spaces are a lot smaller than others, right? So you really have to get creative and you know, so that was a prideful part of what I did.
So you're good at Tetris?
You had to be, right?
Yeah,
you know, to fit a tractor trailer in somewhere, to be able for them to get it in there and then get it back out without wrecking anything. So but to do that, it formed a really strong bond with all the truck drivers.
Sure.
With all the crew chiefs and car chiefs, because, you know, especially when, you know, after 19, you know, we get first third of the way into 20 and then COVID hits. So we had to reimagine everything that we did.
Yeah.
Which one of those things included how we inspected race cars. And so one of the things that they still use today is, you know, we would tell the teams when to bring the cars. You know, used to back before COVID, the garage gate would open, everybody would sprint to their truck, they'd unload their car, and then hurry to get in line to be first in line.
Yeah.
And so and now they don't do that. Now, they stay in. We would leave them in the garage area. We used to tell them there's no sense in you standing out in the sun. So we would
pull them up one at a time.
We would tell them when to go, and we would make sure that all of our inspection stations were full and busy, but have one or two cars on deck, and everybody else you just stay in the garage and wait. And
nobody needs a roast. Absolutely
correct. Or now with the cars being composite, as soon as heat hits them, they start changing shape.
Sure, absolutely don't want that.
Yeah, and we'd see the teams with the umbrellas out. So if we could keep them from having to do that any more than we had to.
Yeah.
But
so the pace car thing. So a few pace car questions.
Okay.
People are dying to know, how fast do you drive the pace car?
It depends on where you are.
Daytona, how fast
All
are
right,
we
so
going?
Daytona, the caution speed is 70.
Okay.
Yeah, and so the pit road speed's 55. So you roll off the pit road and you ride the pace laps at 55, so everyone can get their tax set. Well, now it's all electronic, but they still do that. Setting the pit road speed, but then under caution, 70 is where that's the targeted speed. Depending on what's going on under the caution, how much cleanup they're doing, if they need to, if they need to have a little more space to work, they'll fluctuate the speed.
Sure,
we'll slow down 5-10 miles an hour.
Okay.
If we're trying to blow off oil draft, we're trying to finish drying a racetrack. We'll speed up. And at a place like Daytona and Talladega, that's 100, 110 mile an hour.
I was gonna say, how fast have you driven a pace car?
With a field behind me, and I'll qualify it by saying that with actual race cars behind me, 110 was as fast as we went. And that was at Daytona. We were trying to dry right up against the wall on the back stretch, flat there, so nothing would run off.
Sure.
And you couldn't get a jet turned around to get that finished up. So we were making laps, and they were pretty spirited laps. And we were in a Corvette too, so that made it even better.
Spirited, I like that. That's good.
It was fun. So now the days leading up to the actual race, when we had to calibrate speedometers, and we did that everywhere we went.
And this is an important task. You have got to calibrate. I'm going to say, next time somebody asks me, hey, I'm still a Shelby guy. Can't confirm or deny. I may have a GT 500 or 3. And next time I do that and I blaze down 52 here,
you're calibrating.
I'm calibrating the speedometer. I like that, Kip. That was good. That's a catch-all.
We would go down pit road. So at Daytona, you would get in the pace car. We'd put a transponder on it, just like the race cars use. We'd go down pit road at 55. What we're doing is we're verifying that speedometer matches what they see in race control, because about every 150 feet, some a little more, some a little less.
Some variation.
But there's a loop buried in the racetrack or in the pit road, and that's how they gauge the pit speed. So when someone gets caught speeding, it's electronic.
It's by section. It's not by the whole thing.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and you have to do that too. Yeah. And they've even added more loops at a lot of places. That way, the guy with the number one pit stall can't just do a burnout.
Blaze through there, right? Okay. So how fast have we been?
Maybe a little north of 150.
Heck yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's awesome.
And that's, when you get out at Daytona and Talladega and you can do that, you really you don't even think about it. I mean, it's relative,
because the banking is there, everything is there.
The Corvette was super easy to do that, and I'll tell you, with the Corvettes in the last handful of years, they're all rear engine now.
Yeah,
it was like driving a jet.
It was
because you couldn't hear the engine.
Right,
it's behind you. The way that the hood was designed on this car, you're looking straight down at the road, so it felt like you were driving a plane.
Wow.
Now, when you're out there in a Camaro or a Mustang and you got a light bar on top and you're running 150, you start to think about, I hope that light bar doesn't
blow off.
Right.
But the guys at Wheeling do a really good job, and their light bars are probably not blowing off.
Yeah,
so.
and it's a matter of who does the installation of the light bars. Sure. Which, when you get to that level, man, Chevy and Ford and Toyota, they maintain their cars in house.
Yeah.
So when you're getting in that Chevrolet,
it's top shelf,
and it's been babied. It's been and Chevy did a dynamite job, probably a little better than the other two OEMs. And but it's just because I think they just had the staff to be able to be there and do that. But
have you ever wrecked a pace car? I
have not. Now, I've been hit, but I've never wrecked one.
Who hit you?
Well, Kyle Busch hit me up at Loudon. We were there, and we were. It was trying to rain, and finally the ceiling lowered. And when it got down to the point where it put a glaze on the racetrack, getting into one, Kyle and two of the other Gibbs cars, as a matter of fact, got in there and wrecked.
Oh, wow.
So they send me out to pick the field up, and next thing I know, I look in the mirror, and here comes Kyle. And I know he's mad, right?
Yeah. He's about to prove a point.
But when he got to the point where I couldn't see the hood anymore through the mirror, I knew I just braced, right?
Yeah.
So I'm driving a Camry, a front-wheel drive Camry, if I'd have been in a rear wheel drive car,
Have dumped it.
oh, he did. Yeah. And I told him after, I said, man, it'd have been a much better story for all of our grandkids if you'd have just wrecked me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely.
But he knocked the bumper cover off the car.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we had to go to the backup, which they always have a backup.
There's a backup pace car?
Everywhere they go.
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay.
And sometimes, so when Toyota or even Chevy to this point, when they're the OEM of choice for pace cars, there's typically a pair for Xfinity, a pair for Cup, and a pair for trucks.
That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
So you've got super redundancy there.
Right on, yeah, absolutely.
But we've had flat tires. We've had to go to backups.
Yeah.
We were in a Camry one time and drove by a jet blower, and the bottom of a Camry had a big plastic pan on the bottom of it.
It melted it.
Well, it flipped it.
Oh, wow.
So it's dragging underneath the car. Well, you're driving in the car with a helmet and earplugs in it.
You have no idea what that is.
You're hearing it, and it's like, is the radio staticky or what's that racket?
Yeah.
And so we had to go to the backup, which coincidentally was at New Hampshire
That's
again.
funny,
so.
man. Backup car. But New Hampshire was dangerous, wasn't it?
It was, I guess
Between
had
Kyle
potential to
and
be.
the jet blowers, yeah.
Yeah. I never, I know that there have been some instances with pace cars since I've left, and my phone blew up. Like,
I saw. I thought, of course, we all thought about you when we saw it. So we're
Yeah.
like, man, I wonder what. Yeah.
So I'm sitting there watching that race at Phoenix 2 years ago, and when the barrel reached out and hit the pace car coming on the pit road, and sand went everywhere, I felt so bad for Jesse that was driving the pace car then, and he was in a spot where he had to make a decision,
Right.
and it was just way too late to make that choice.
Sure.
And so anyway, just a tough spot to be
Human
in.
error happens to all of us.
Could
We've
happen
all
to any
done it.
of us,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah. Velocita-USA, the world's greatest driving suit. Lighter, faster, better than what you're wearing. Suits, gloves, shoots, helmets, head and neck restraint, everything for your safety program in one location. Check us out online, velocita-usa.com. Give us a call, 336-764-8502. Drive fast, take chances. For all your rodeo and Western lifestyle apparel, check out rocket-donkey.com. That's Rocket Donkey Apparel. You'll see these folks all over the place. You'll even pick them up at the Chili Bowl Nationals. They've got trade show booths at virtually every barrel race in America. Check them out online, rocket-donkey.com. Hey guys, this part of the show brought to you in part by EasySponsorships.com. If you're looking for sponsorship for your race car and running into dead ends and closed doors everywhere, check out EasySponsorships.com and learn from the super sponsor man, Claude Hagerty. He will show you how to find money to go racing. So you leave the Cup Series. How does the whole Cars Tour thing come about? And your current role now, what is your current role?
Yeah, so I am the my title's actually changed a couple of times just in since I've been here. I was hired as the executive director of the Cars Tour. Through bringing on some other people and trying to grow what we do from a full-time standpoint, we now have a vice president of sales and marketing, and so that put me in a position where I'm now vice president of competition.
Okay.
The way that I look at that is I'm the director of the series.
Sure.
But I'm able to I'm focused completely on competition and what we
Gotcha.
do there. The way that all kind of came about, I don't remember what race we were at. Harvick was still driving.
Okay.
And most everyone knows, if you don't, Dale Jr., Kevin
Yeah, I was
Harvick.
going to say, who owns this series?
Yep. Dale Jr., Kevin, Jeff Burton, Justin Marks. They're the four owners of the series. And so Kevin comes up to me at a race, and I don't remember where we were. And he said, man, have you ever considered doing something different? Well, at the time, I was like, hell no, man. I'm in the Cup Series.
But you're also the next guy in line. And while we were all in Daytona that year, you're at the pavement track, I'm up street at Volusia. We're hearing rumblings at New Smyrna, also in the garage, that you're getting ready to get the call. Like, we're hearing that you're the next guy to move up. So when we hear the news that you've done this, we're all mind blown, man, like blown away.
Yeah. So when he asked me that, and my instant response was no. I want to do what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I had a comfort with what I was doing.
Sure.
Right. So he said, no, I really want you to consider doing this. He said, we bought this series. He said, we want to find someone to come in and run it. The fellow we bought it from, he's doing it now, and he's looking to retire. And we want somebody to come in here that can kind of take it to the next level from a professionalism standpoint. And so, I came home and talked to Jenny about it and prayed about it. I mean, that was a big deal because I was finishing up my 15th year back at NASCAR.
Sure.
In my 50s, I really and truly thought that would be my last job.
And we'll toot your horn. You're arguably the most promotable guy in the organization. And I kind of look at that sort of military wise. You've got officers that went to college and went through OCS and really have never been never been warriors. And then you've got Major Pats who started off as a grunt and worked their way up. I kind of saw you as that Major Pat, but you had bridged that gap because to the best of my knowledge, you don't have a master's degree. Am I right?
That's correct.
So you've earned all your stripes all the way to that point, and you're assistant director of the Cup Series. Arguably, from our perspective, friends, people who have watched you come up, you're arguably the most promotable guy in the series. And then we see the announcement that you're the director of the Cars Tour. It was mind blowing. And one of the pieces we're going to get into here in a minute is some of the rumors and myths about Cars Tour. But man, that had to be probably the biggest career decision of your life.
It was, and so it was, like I said, it didn't come lightly, but at the same time too, when I weighed everything out and when I've gone back and, the guys that have worked for me, and I've always told them, don't ever worry about if you have an opportunity that is presented to you, don't ever worry about coming to me and telling me that you're taking a chance to make yourself better.
Sure.
To make your circumstances better.
Kip, hold on one second. Will you just make sure Bobby's not in the lobby? Yeah. Go ahead.
So, the one thing I had to do was remind myself that I needed to do that too.
Sure.
So, and it wasn't all about money, because, I'm coming from, what is arguably one of the more, lucrative motorsports entities in the world.
The granddaddy.
Right. To go to work for a short track deal, I was concerned that, how big were we? How big was it? None of us have ever gotten rich at what we're doing, but we've got bills to pay.
But you've obviously had to have a level of comfort or at least peace knowing that the four people that run the series, not run, but own the series, because obviously you guys and your staff run the series, but their heart was in it, their passion was in it, their money was behind it. They really wanted to make this thing work. And I mean, I kind of equivalent that whole Wilkesboro transition. While I understand it's NASCAR, this, that, and the other, I feel like without the Cars Tour and without Dale doing what Dale did, I don't know that it would ever happen.
Yeah. So, there's all of that, right? And so I had to, when I went back and I had discussions with not only Kevin but Dale and Jeff and Justin and ultimately made the decision to make the change. It was because I felt like they had the trust in me to come in here and do this.
Sure.
Already had a great product. I mean, for sure, they were already just killing it on the streaming platforms, and attendance was great, and they did the revival when I was still at NASCAR at Wilkesboro, so I got to be, it was really cool. I got to be a part of Cup's return to Wilkesboro, and then that's right after that's when I made my departure,
right.
And now get to be a part of what the Cars Tour does there each and every time we go there. But so it was a difficult decision up front. But looking back on it now, I'm so glad I made it because
I was going to say, I've known you through most of your professional career. That'd be a fair statement.
Yeah.
Never seen you this happy.
Yeah.
Never.
It's been great. Just because, and I will tell you, it doesn't come without some tough days.
Sure.
We've had, and even this past season, and this is my third season, or 2.5 seasons. So this is the end of my second complete season. But at any rate, we've made some mistakes along the way from an officiating standpoint, whether it's an inspection or whether it's actually during the running of the race. But man, this crew that we have now, they are so eager to learn, and you see it when they know they've made a mistake. You see the disappointment that they've got within themselves on their face. Sure. We had an instance at a race late in the season this past year where an official made a mistake, and it was big. It was costly.
There was a lot of chatter about that.
Yes,
a lot of chatter.
And the thing of it is too here's the analogy I had to make to everyone. A call that's made or a call that's missed in the race it's missed. As unfortunate as that is. Sure. The analogy is if a referee in a football game misses a holding call, well, 5 plays later, or even at the end of the game, he can't go and suddenly.
You can't fix it.
No.
Yeah.
So we had to eat that, and because of who it did involve, made it even tougher.
Sure.
But I think that what and this is. there's going to be the court of public opinion in the grandstands and on social. And then we've got our folks in the garage. And after, a lot of discussion, I think the folks in the garage really know that we are making the calls the best way we can, right? There's not a number on the side of a car
that makes that much difference.
That influences that.
And that's one of the things we're going to touch on in just a second as well. Everybody's an armchair quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
Hindsight is always 20/20. There's no question in my mind, if you could go back and erase every mistake that you've ever made, you would erase the mistake, but you wouldn't trade the knowledge or the wisdom you gained from making that mistake.
Well, for sure. And especially for our guys, because, this is something I've had to remind all of our folks. We've got guys that are officials for us. Some of them have been doing the short track late model world for a long time. Some are brand new. And, even at that, there are still different levels of those officials. There's a great group of officials that are cup officials.
Right on.
But they get paid full-time money to do that.
Right on.
Our guys go and work a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, sometimes Monday through Thursday, and then they come and work for us on Friday and Saturday. So it's a tough deal for them. We want them to learn as we go. Hopefully we learn before we go.
Absolutely.
But learning as we go. And then the other part of that is, even when we have drivers and crew members that want to climb the ladder and go to upper levels of sport, we want our officials to know that they can do that too.
Gotcha. So, Kip, there are some, we're going to call it Cars Tour rumors that we either want you to confirm or deny. And you're the most diplomatic guy that I know. So, if you got to put me in neutral, you got to put me in neutral, but I understand. And also, keep in mind, we're not live, so we make this. Rumor is that the 4 folks that allegedly own the Cars Tour don't own the Cars Tour. NASCAR owns it. Yeah,
that's false. Yeah, so when the guys bought the tour, they bought it all equal shares of what they paid for it to Jack McNally, who was the previous owner. And this may be another rumor that you have. We hear all the time that because these 4 guys do own the tour, that we've got just an unlimited amount of money to back us up. And that's not true. When these guys bought the tour, they bought it to preserve it, to save it, right? To make sure that when Jack decided to retire, the tour could still move on. But they told us under no uncertain terms are we to fall back and rely on them 100%. We've got to make sure that, what it costs us to go to the racetrack and put on these events. We have to go out there and find this money.
So it does have to be self-sustaining.
It does.
The next rumor that we've heard is that it did not take the money of these 4 well-established, very successful drivers to actually buy Jack out.
I don't understand that question.
Well, so the rumor is that the tour had negligible assets going in or for sale at the time. It was obviously established. You and I have followed the tour for a while. That the tour really wasn't necessarily all that valuable as a commodity, but the potential for the tour was there, and that the 4 partners didn't really need to be partners. Any of the 4 partners could have easily absorbed it.
Yeah, well, that's true. We all know that those guys were just mega successful in everything they've ever done, right? And any of them could have gone in and done it by themselves. But I think what's been great is the 4 that do own the tour, their personalities and their backgrounds are so different from one another that it's great from my standpoint to have those 4 to really lean on when it comes to, when we do have a decision that may be difficult, that I know that I'm going to get different aspects or different opinions from them, either looking at it from a business standpoint or a competitive standpoint or, a passion standpoint. Dale is super passionate about this, and, Kevin's got a great business head on his shoulder. Jeff comes to us with, 100% safety focused, and then the marketing genius behind Justin. I mean, it's a great foursome to have as to be our ownership group.
It's pretty odd to have 4 partners in anything, though, but that's pretty awesome. They work together. The other rumor that we hear, especially here, right here in town, is that it's just a series so that those guys' cars can race.
Yeah, and that's not true. They were racing in it before. Kevin wasn't. Kevin, they built that car, right at the same time that they bought the series, and we've had to probably come down harder on that car especially when Rodney, first got involved with putting that first late model together for
He's
Kevin.
a crafty guy.
He is. He's so smart, and he's so dang nice too, right? I mean, to go and have to get on to him about a body panel that needs to be addressed or changed, and don't get me wrong, I've seen the not nice side of Rodney too. When we've added weight to the car, we've had to do something to compensate some of the creativeness that they've had, and so
I was very diplomatic. Creativeness,
I
like that. Yeah.
So but that it's coincidental that, of course, that now that Keelan's growing up and has an opportunity to race, both in the pro and then as he gets older in the late model stock, and he'll spend some time there and in the super. I think Kevin's, mindset for him is just to fully engulf him in all that he can.
Sure.
And, that's, part of the reason why he's running Cars Tour here on the East Coast. He goes out and runs Cars Tour West, and they even run some super races that are, sprinkled around the country too. And our pro races, and then the junior motorsports car was in the Cars Tour well before they even considered buying it. Josh Berry was wildly successful, winning. Yeah. So yeah, it's, I think it's more coincidental than really anything.
Also, they say that those who are involved get preferential treatment, that the cars are teched differently and that they're given competitive advantages.
Yeah. Well, that's, you and I touched on that a little bit earlier,
Sure.
and that's absolutely false. We feel like we have a great group of inspectors now that they really go out of their way to make sure that they're doing things the same on every car that comes through the tech line, whether it's whether it's a template or the referee that we use to check heights and a lot of measurements there, and weighing the cars as well. Dale ran with us, and I don't remember where we were, but when he got sent around because the car was too light, he was pumped up about the fact that his car got sent around. So our guys, I take that extremely personal when someone wants to make that reference, because our guys, they go, like I said, they go out of their way to make sure they do it the same. And then from a standpoint of anyone that says that we make a decision during the course of a race to benefit, whether it's an owner's car or anybody else's car, I take that very personal, because I have a very high level of integrity. If you want to get mad at me for missing a call, if you want to get mad at me for forgetting something, if you want to get mad at me for doing any of those things, I am totally fine with that, and we can have a discussion about that. But when you come and you make the accusation that we've made a call because of who will either benefit or not benefit from that call, now you're attacking my integrity, and that'll get my ire up pretty quick.
And while I don't know the four partners, I did race with Dale a little bit go-karts when we were kids many, many years ago. Did a little bit at work for Jeff through RCR many, many years ago, but don't really have necessarily a relationship with any of those guys. But I have known you 30 plus years, right, and I will absolutely ampersand the integrity. I've said Kip Childress is probably the most honorable guy that I know in motorsports, and I mean that sincerely. So to hear you say that and confirm that kind of puts some of that at rest. There's a lot at stake there, and obviously if you guys do play favorites, you lose the contingency and the people don't show up. This episode brought to you in part by Schoenfeld Headers, Van Buren, Arkansas, all the way back to Daddy Schoenfeld, building the best headers for all types of racing. If you need headers for your race cars, SchoenfeldHeaders.com. Check them out online or at any of their thousands of retailers nationwide. This episode brought to you by Bassett Racing Wheels. Whether you're looking for a 15-inch inertia wheel, rolled edge, armor edge protection, whatever it is that you need, DOT, IMCA, Bassett Racing Wheel has you covered. Bassett Racing Wheels is the leader in short track wheels nationwide. BassettWheels.com for all your racing wheel needs. This portion of our show brought to you by Woodleaf Raceway Park, right on Facebook. Check out the world's greatest dirt go-kart track with a focus on kids and family. They have go-karted go-kart racing. Jeff Freeman and his staff work tirelessly to make sure your kids are safe and having a great time. Check them out on Facebook at Woodleaf Raceway Park.
And like I said, there you'll have what the fans think and what what their ideas are, and that's at all levels of the sport, right?
100%.
But as long as we have the faith of the folks that are in the garage area, in the pit area, week in and week out, we think that the fan part will take care of itself. We looked at our car counts this year on the pro level. We averaged just over 20 cars a race, throughout the season. And that's, we had some big races. We went down to Cordele and had a great turnout down there. And one of the Wilkesboros had a really big turnout. And, but still, we consider pros kind of our entry level.
Sure.
And so we're getting somewhere in the mid-teens, north of 20 almost every event. On the late model stock side, we averaged more than 30 cars an event.
Right.
Our field size at the majority of the races we go to is 30 cars.
Sure.
It's 36 at Wilkesboro, 28 or 26 at Wake County.
Which was probably 6 too many at Wake County.
Maybe. I mean, but still, we had a good core of about 15 of them that came every time we opened the gate.
Yeah.
And we would pick up the handful of cars that, depending on what track we were at. And so, to get those guys that come and race with us, I think if we were doing something that was underhanded or shady, they wouldn't.
So I've heard both sides of this story, and recently a very accomplished racer from the Hickory, North Carolina area, and also a very accomplished racer from Southern Virginia in the same business day through some of our screen printing stuff that we do for them, both made the same statement. And I asked them, I said, hey, why don't you guys run the Cars Tour? And both of those drivers said, we can't afford it. Cars Tour has made late model stock racing too expensive for us. Have you heard that from other drivers? And what's your take or what's your feeling on that?
Yeah, we hear that a lot. And make no mistake about it, racing is expensive. I get tickled when I hear the word affordable in racing, back to back.
Sure. We're talking first world problems. Everybody seems to discount that.
Racing's expensive, and it is. The one thing that we have really tried to do and will continue to try to do is to make sure that, a late model stock car, whether you're racing in the Cars Tour or you're racing at, a local track, if you're racing at Hickory or you're racing at Langley, from a construction standpoint, it's going to be the same car. We've got a few items that we allow to be changed on our cars that, I don't know so much that it drives the cost any more, any less. The shocks, when I came on board, shocks was a big topic of discussion because we allowed shocks that had base valves. We allowed different a few different styles of shocks than NASCAR did. NASCAR was really focused on making sure that all the internal parts on every shock that they had, met their spec. So. And there were a few times where Cars Tour guys would show up at a NASCAR sanctioned event and be disqualified because of their shocks.
Sure.
Every time that happened, the team would step up and say they put the wrong shock on the car, and it was an honest mistake, and you got to take them for the word on that, right?
And then for the positive side of that, I've also heard that the Cars Tour has saved late model stock racing. We have seen diminished car counts over the years because, like we touched on, the cost, I think a set of tires now is nearly $1,000.
Right.
A few weeks ago, just calling around, I own a late model team, and looking at some new stuff, we made a phone call to a local builder and asked what it would cost for a new roller, best of the best of everything, roller. We bring our motor and transmission, $93,000. That's out of reach for the average potato-eating guy working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But on the flip side of that, with the touring format, the purses you guys are paying, the exposure, the streaming, I've also heard Cars Tour has saved late model stock racing.
Yeah, and then, even with that, we want our guys that run regularly with us, we want them to go and participate with the local tracks when we're not racing. And I think that when, if you look at our schedule that we came out with a week or so ago, I think that kind of proves that, right? We don't run, there's two times in 26 that we'll run back-to-back events. One's at the very beginning just because of the way a few other dates fell, and we didn't want to cross up somebody that wanted to participate in another event. And then one's at the end of the season because, quite frankly, it makes no sense to run against Bristol Night Race.
Sure.
We did that in 25, and we saw the impact it had on streaming numbers. So we wanted to make sure that we've got a great partner in Flow. We want to make sure that we're making decisions, doing the right things to get eyeballs on their product, because that's eyeballs on our product. But so we'll run the back-to-back races there, just before the Bristol Night Race as we head into our last couple of races. But we've got several guys and several teams that they'll go run a Hickory or a Wake County or Newport, or they'll go somewhere and go and race, and that's great for those racetracks. We need the racetracks to really to be successful when we're not there, because we want them to be successful when we are.
Sure.
So I think that, and we have taken a much deeper dive on having those conversations with those track operators, during, since we finished here just a couple of weeks ago, up until the schedule went out, with a lot of in-depth phone calls. We spent 2 or 3 days from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. just having those calls with those tracks. And we've learned a lot. Kelly Earnhardt Miller, I mean, she has jumped in just like she has with every other business that Dale's got his hands on, and she's
elbows deep. She really is, and a lot of people don't realize how involved she is.
For sure, and so from a business standpoint, bringing in Andrew Fight to handle a lot of the the marketing and sales for us, and then with Carson Elledge, who is Kelly's daughter, and then Logan Clark came on board with us from a social standpoint. We've really worked hard to put together a team in the office that will be able to help those tracks, that in turn will be able to help us and then our teams as well.
So do you think you guys currently, just so folks understand, you guys currently don't run under any sanction. You kind of are your own entity. Is that correct?
We are, yep.
Will we ever see that as a NASCAR sanction? I know ever's a long time, but
is.
Yes.
And I learned a long time ago to never say never, or never, try to incorporate that word. I don't know. In the short term, I'd say right now we are tickled to death with doing things the way we're doing them. Like I said, we work pretty closely with NASCAR. I did with Les Westerfield. I felt like I had a little bit of an advantage there coming from the NASCAR world. When I left, it was not on bad terms.
Right.
So I was able to pick the phone up and call Les. And now, unfortunately, after Les's passing, and they had to make a few adjustments there, but I still work with Jimmy Wilson, who took his role.
Sure.
Jimmy and I have known each other for 20 years, 30 years. And then with Joey Denowitz on the business side, and he's been, very interested in what we do, and likewise us with them. And so I think I'll never say never, but at least right now we've got a good working relationship with them to be able to make decisions that we need to make our business go.
Do you think we would ever see the Cars Tour at Bowman Gray?
I'll never say never. When it was funny when the Clash, they ran there, and I showed up to Bowman Gray to talk to some folks. We were already talking about our opportunity on FS1, and so I showed up there at the stadium, and of course everybody walked around, wondering
exactly
if I
where
was,
it came from. Yeah.
So it was
Kip's here. We're going to be racing. Yeah.
And so of course we have several of our. Hey, look, we have several of our teams that would see the benefit of us running that stadium.
Sure.
Because there would be.
A lot.
And we took the K&N cars there when I was part of that deal, for the first time. And I told our guys in the driver's meeting, I said, you will not have another feeling like you will get when you push that car from the pit area out there in front of 18,000 people.
That's good.
It is a chill that runs. I've got chills right now just thinking about it. It is a chill that runs down your spine, because these are the core race fan that we all need to be in front of, right?
Yeah.
Now, did the K&N put on a great race that first time there? Absolutely not. We ran way more caution laps than we ran green laps, but that racing got better. And look, we run quarter-mile tracks right now. Wake County's one of them.
Yeah.
And so, I really think that, if the stars were to align and we were to have the opportunity to run there, and it made sense for us to do that, I'll never say never.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What's next for Cars Tour? What should we expect to see? What should our fans be looking forward to? What should our drivers be looking forward to? Obviously, the 2026 schedule is set. What do we have new? What's new and exciting? Obviously, the series is still growing because you're still, in my opinion, you're still kind of in your infancy with the guys that you have. What's next? What do we look forward to seeing with the tour?
So for sure, I think that we have to be super careful about growing too fast. We want to grow fast in the terms of putting eyeballs on our guys and on our product, but we don't need to outgrow the racer that we have racing with us. The majority of our garage still works a 9-to-5 job. They're blue collar guys and gals, and so they work their jobs and then they load their race cars up and come, and we run on Friday and Saturdays. So we really have to be careful that we don't get outside of the footprint that's comfortable for them. We're fortunate in the fact that the pros, that's basically a nationwide series. So that's why we did have a great car count when we went down to Cordell. And when we go to fairgrounds, in the spring,
there's a bunch of guys there.
I think we'll have a bunch there too. But for our late model stock guys, and let's be clear, we're a late model stock series that has pros that run with us. We want both of them to really thrive and succeed. But the late model stock car class is our number one, and the pros are a close second. So the late model stock car guys, though, with us, basically being a series that is, you don't find that car anywhere out of North and South Carolina and Virginia.
It's definitely our region for
right?
sure.
And then you get still see a few perimeter cars when you get over into Tennessee. But, we since I came on board, I've been asked by Bob Sargent from day one, we got to get you guys here to fairgrounds. And so we were able to put that deal together for 26. So we're excited about that. But we got to be careful. And it's like, I'll back up. When we put Cordell on the schedule last year, it concerned some of our teams.
That's really far from late model stock country.
It is. And so when you look at it, and granted, we kind of use our hub or the center point of our bullseye, so to speak, when you're sitting there drawing out a map. And Mooresville is that center. But we've got teams that are based, up close to Richmond. We've got teams in Southern Virginia. We've got teams out in the coast of North Carolina. So we have to be mindful of the fact that when
your champion is from the coastal North Carolina,
right? So when we pick a track to go to, we've got to be mindful of who's coming from the farthest distance. So Cordell was a long pull for us in Mooresville, it was 6 hours, or shade more than that. So when we go to now that we're going to fairgrounds, about the same. It'll be 6 to 7 hours. So we've told our teams that right now we don't want to overtax them with long pulls. So Cordell not being on the schedule allowed us to put fairgrounds on there. One big race that has a little bit of a pull, it'll have a bigger purse. Cordell did last year or this year, and Nashville will next year, and so it'll obviously they're still not racing for super big money,
right?
But it'll be a bigger purse, especially from middle to the back of the field.
Nice. And I think those guys that are grassroots racing your 9-to-5s, they really appreciate that. They're really going to need that.
And that's in both classes, right? It's for late model stocks and for the pros. The tracks really stepped up. The sponsors that they were able to get and we were able to kind of help out with too, were able to step up and make that possible.
Awesome. Well, Kip, what would you like to leave our viewers and listeners with today? If there's anything that they really, if you're thinking Cars Tour, what should we be thinking of? What should we be thinking about? When Cars Tour comes to mind, what should be that vision in our brain?
Yeah, I would say that the Cars Tour racers that you'll see coming up in 2026, you don't know when one of those guys or gals will be the next Kyle Larson.
True.
You don't know. We want you to come out and watch because we want you to be able to see those next superstars when they're getting started. I posted a picture the other day of myself and Kyle Larson when he won the K&N championship.
I saw that. That was pretty awesome.
That was in 2012. And the dirt guys knew who Kyle was even then.
Yeah.
Us in the asphalt world, we had no clue. We kind of did, but didn't really know what we were getting, what we're in store for seeing.
The whole world's pretty familiar with that now.
Right. And so, but you never know. The Josh Berrys of the world, the Quapples of the world, these guys that are getting their start right now.
I think Dale's nephew is going to be contender, man.
Yeah, he's already super good in everything he sets in, and
Chip off the old block. His dad, a lot of people didn't realize how awesome LW was.
yeah.
LW was a wheel man, sir. So yeah, it's not surprising.
Wyatt's going to be racing this weekend too. He's getting in his limited again and going and running at Hickory. So he's trying to get some asphalt oval experience by running there. He's already knows where Victory Lane is.
Yeah,
at
I
that
saw
joint.
that.
So,
He won a few weeks ago. That's awesome.
So he's going to be really good this weekend. But yeah, Wyatt jumping up there. It's so cool though when you look at the guys that were running for championships this year. Corey Heim spent some time with us. Obviously Connor Zilish, he won a Carstar race a couple years ago, and then Carson Quapple and those guys that are representing us so well. And then it goes right to Josh Berry, who's a former champion that's running at the very top of our sport. So. You never know who that next Brendan Queen. I mean, there's another one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
Wheelman. Wow.
You don't know where the next Butterbean is going to be coming from, and so we feel real fortunate that a lot of them come right through us.
I think Landon Lewis is probably following that trail too, man.
Yeah,
because kid's a wheelman.
He is, and what a lot of people don't realize is he was a wheelman before he got in that late model, and it's only because circumstances made themselves available that he was able to get in at full time this season.
Yeah,
because he was riding. He didn't get the race in 25. He didn't. Well, let me get my numbers right. In 24, he didn't get to race every weekend because of the seat wasn't open or the funds weren't available. So for him to be able to get in that car and really show what he had week after week after week,
it was very impressive.
And it's going to be fun to watch him move up too.
Absolutely.
He already got a truck ride for next year.
Yeah, saw that. It's awesome, man. Well, Kip, thanks so much for joining us, man. We hope to have you back some more.
Sure.
Obviously, when we have those controversial weeks, we'd love to come back and get your take on it, like I say.
We can do that.
And then as we also celebrate victories, man, and milestones for you guys, awesome to watch the series and tour grow. And I think for many, many years, many of us have wanted to see a late model stock touring series. Kudos to Jack for having the courage to start and do that and make it what it was. And now for you guys to grab that torch and carry on. And with the horsepower you've got behind it, money aside, the passion that's there. Because when you hear Dale talk about the series, when you hear Jeff, when you hear Justin, when you hear Kevin talk about it, they light up. It's a different topic for them.
That's for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. Yep.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much.
Yep.
All right, guys.